What is something that's going to help them pay attention in math class or pay attention in English class or do that paper that you've asked them to do? You got to build that relationship with them, just like with anything. If you don't know them, then how are you loving them?
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Have you ever met an educator who you can tell just loves what they do? They love being an educator, they love their students, they love their subject area. Even as a student myself, when I was younger, I remember those teachers as being my favorites. Even when I was a young student, I could tell that they loved being in the classroom. They weren't griping about papers that they had to grade or a classroom that they had to change the decorations in or another meeting they had to go to. Not that those things, I'm sure, didn't frustrate them at times, but their love for teaching just radiated. I knew also that they loved their students. They loved me as an individual student. And what a difference that makes to students. But how do you get there? How do you stay there? Well, today we're going to talk about love in education. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another great episode. As we get started, just a reminder to take a minute to subscribe to the podcast and go check us out on social media. We are Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook, and you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Teacher Edition Pod. I also want to invite you to go to our website, teachereditionpodcast.com. There you can subscribe to our emails. You can also submit your questions. I hope you have benefited from and learned from the questions that we have shared and answered here on the show. I can tell you that I always do. The questions have been thought-provoking, and I really appreciate when our guests weigh in and share their great insights. But that being said, to share questions, we need to have questions. So take a minute to visit our website and record a quick question to be shared on a future episode. One last reminder, we would really appreciate it if you would take a minute to give us a positive rating and a review. That helps us, but it also helps others to find the show. I am constantly meeting people who don't know about the podcast. And if they don't know about it, they can't listen to it. So your ratings and reviews help us reach and encourage even more educators. Okay, so today's topic, love in education. I am super excited to have Randy Padgett on the show today. So I have had the opportunity to cross paths with Randy multiple times. I was thinking about this. It's been a few years and in multiple places, and I just have always really appreciated his obvious love for education. So I know he's going to bring much to the table today. He has been a teacher and a principal. He's currently serving as the upper school principal, and he specializes in middle and high school math at Parkway Christian Academy in Lakeland, Florida. Randy has been recognized with a Dedicated Teacher Award and 2 Who's Who Among American Teachers honors. In 2001, he founded Heritage Educational Services, which provides homeschool and tutoring services to those in the Lakeland community for nearly 2 decades. He holds a bachelor's degree in general studies, and he's currently pursuing a master's degree in educational leadership. By the way, you have heard me say on this show many times, the best teachers are learners. And I just love that Randy is working on his master's degree, and he has 40 or so years of experience in the classroom. Like, that would be the perfect time, it seems, for him to just sit back and coast. But instead, he is still learning. When outside of work, Randy really enjoys spending time with his wife and their 4 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Randy, I am so excited to have you here on the show with us. Welcome to the Teacher Edition podcast.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm excited to be here too.
Good. Okay, so we're talking about love in education, or maybe loving education, if you want to say it that way. I told a little bit about some of the great teachers that I have had in the past. Talk to us about what you think, in your experience, makes a great teacher.
Wow. I had some great teachers in the past. I went through, when you asked me to do this episode, I went through just in my mind, and I started writing down teachers that I had, their names, and it was amazing that I could remember certain things about them, but almost nothing had to do with the academics that I remembered.
Interesting.
Almost all of it had to do with their interest in us as students. My second grade teacher, I wanted to go home with her, and my mom said, "You can't do that." I said, "But she wants to take the whole class," and she said, "But you can't do that." Teacher after teacher, You also have the other teachers that you don't really remember. And I know that's not why we teach, but that should end up being a benefit of
Sure.
of
Part of the
why we
impact. Yeah.
teach. So, but to have a love for teaching, first of all, you have to want to teach. I remember I started teaching technically before my bachelor's degree was finished, and enjoyed what I was doing. I just loved being able to share with the kids the knowledge that I had, but also I learned from them, looking at, not just the subject that I was teaching, but seeing the light bulb come on, seeing the students understand something for the first time, which is probably why I ended up teaching math the most of my teaching career. Yeah, it takes love for the job. It takes a good curriculum to use. It takes knowing that curriculum and how to use it. But if you don't have love for them, and I had a former principal tell me they will care how much you know when they know how much you care.
That's right.
And it just takes spending time. It's almost what makes a good parent. A good parent is spending time with their kids. A good teacher
Right.
is spending time getting to know your kids.
That's great. When you said you have to want to teach, it reminded me, I've heard several people say, I didn't know what else to do, so I thought I would just teach. As if that is like, plan Z in everything I wanted to do. But now I guess I'll just teach because anybody can do that. And I always think, no, 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 no. You have to really want to teach. You have to be called
Yeah.
to it. It is a calling. It's not just something you do as a backup plan, because if you're going to do it the right way, there is far too much of an investment, and you do have to have that love. You have to want it. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So you've been an educator for many years and in several different positions and places. Let's reflect a little bit on that. If you don't mind, share with us some things that you feel maybe over the years you have done well, and maybe some things that you wish you had done differently in your love of education, your love for students, but just in general as well.
I think one of the most current things is I wish I had pursued my master's degree much sooner. Um, just, I think timing is everything. So I know that God is using my education now to help me with what I'm doing and to help other teachers. But it sure would have been nice to know some things that I'm learning now. And I guess that's always going to be part of it if you're really wanting to better your classroom. But that's one thing that I would definitely do differently. I would pursue my education sooner than later. Probably looking at the times that I was not as patient as I should have been with a student. We've
I think most
unfortunately
teachers
all
can
had
say
those
that.
times where we've lost it just a little bit,
Oh, yes.
and we've had to stop, walk away, and say, I'll be back, at least in our minds,
Right. Right.
So, because we're not perfect. Just
Right.
because you love someone doesn't mean you never get upset with them.
Sure.
But getting the students to realize, and I think that's one thing that I've tried to do well, is getting them to realize, hey, I may be upset with you right now, but you're still my kid. I didn't want other teachers to have to correct my kids. I wanted to do it because they were my kids. And when kids see that, it's nice to see them come back to you and say, things. I know not a lot of people are on Facebook anymore, except for those of us that are older. But I'm still on Facebook. But my son himself, joined Facebook, and I didn't know anything about it. I was one of those, don't do this yet. And someone that was a former student of mine came to me and said, are you on Facebook? And I said, no. She said, well, you should be. And I said, why? And she goes, well, there's a lot of kids that you've had, they were your students, and they are talking about some of their favorite teachers, and your names come up in
Aw,
every one of these. And I'm like, wait a minute.
that's
And I got on
encouraging.
there, and I joined Facebook, and I joined that page. It was about the school where I am now. And my son had commented, yeah, that's my dad.
Aw,
And that just kind of melts your heart,
right.
to know that your own child is seeing that kids were excited about you being their teacher. So I don't know that I've done a lot of things right, But, I learned how to love from my dad. My dad was my inspiration on that. And, and he and God were very influential in my life with that. And I miss my dad, but he taught me how to love, not just my wife, but taught me how to love my job, love my own kids, and like I said, taking students in to be part of you. And that's actually the next point I have down is you have to have a love for students, because if you don't have that love for students, and I taught with a teacher one time, and every day she was like, "Oh, I just can't stand middle school. I just can't stand middle school." And I'm like, then go to work at Walmart. I didn't say that, but in my mind, I was thinking that.
That might be a
It
good
was like,
suggestion.
you you have to love what you do, but you also have to love who you do it with. And loving the students, I think, is a really big part of it because if you don't love the students, then maybe you're just in the wrong area of teaching, at least. But you've got to have a love for them. I had one teacher jokingly said to me one time, I could get a lot done if it weren't for students. And I looked at her and said,
Right.
if we didn't have students, we wouldn't have a job.
I was just going to
Um,
say that too. So much for your job.
yeah, but I mean, I knew what she meant,
Sure, of
and
course.
she loved students too. She was just having one of those frustrating days, which we all do. But loving students, first of all, to love them, you've got to know them. You've got to be able to understand, like with middle school, what day are they a grown man? What day are they a little boy? What is their interest? What is something that's going to help them pay attention in math class, or pay attention in English class, or do that paper that you've asked them to do? You've got to build that relationship with them, just like with anything. If you don't know them, then how are you loving them? So
Right.
it comes from getting to know them. And then comes the encouraging them to grow. Because if
Right.
you don't know them, why should they be listening to you? Why would they want to know the information that you have? Which goes right back to what my former administrator told me. They'll care how much you know when they know how much you care. So that keeping it as positive as possible when you're dealing with middle school, that's fun. Um, my wife has often said I have a sick mind because I love middle school and I love math. Um,
That is quite the
and,
combination.
and I'm like, but it's fun. And, how do you get that excitement? You get that excitement just by, how do you love anything? You work towards having that excitement for it. It's something that you have to build.
Right. Yeah. And listeners, I can tell you this is genuine because I was just at an event where Randy was. And as soon as I sat down at the table at dinner, he started telling about his students and his class and what's going on. So I can tell you, he loves his students and he loves his classes. Okay, Randy, I want to swing back around on something you said about the students, because obviously they're a significant part of being a teacher. Talk with us a little bit more about what you've learned in that area. How, in one major area, especially because you see new teachers come in, but even some of those who have been there a long time, how do you love your students without becoming their friend? That's a line that often takes a while to learn and kind of navigate. Loving them, yet keeping from losing respect as a teacher. And that's really getting difficult in these days as everybody is, just a texting buddy or we chat or whatever. How do you keep that line there? What do you think?
That's the difficult thing, and it's difficult in different areas for different age groups. For a young teacher, they can't cross that line with being a buddy. If they become the student's buddy, they're losing that class. They've got
Absolutely.
to make sure they keep an adult presence there.
Right.
But they've also got to work into the place where they can sometimes, the way we used to say it was let their hair down, where they can
Right.
actually have fun with their kids. I used to tell my students, we can have fun when we finish the work,
Right.
but we have to do this
There's a
first.
time for
So
everything.
putting that, there's a time for everything. The real important thing about that is because there's a time for everything with kids, there has to be a time for some fun.
Right.
It's not in the classroom. Yeah, when you're supposed to have math, you've got to have math class. When you're supposed to have English, you've got to have English. I remember back one of my first years maybe my third year teaching, there was a student that they read something in their science book, and we were doing science and we were doing well. I had some reading orally and we were stopping to talk about it and everything. And one student, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he misread 3 words right in a row. And it was just so funny that we all just took the time to stop and laugh.
That's good.
Because sometimes, especially with middle school, you've got to do that so that they
Good for
know
them to
you're
see you
human.
laughing with them.
Yeah. But on the other hand, if your classroom becomes nothing but laughter, then you've lost them.
True.
So you've got to make sure that you can zero back around and say, okay, enough's enough. We got to stop. This is something that we have to do. We can have fun when we finish the work. So it's doing the work first, making sure there's time to do the fun stuff when it comes up.
Right. Yeah. And just following that line carefully. And every class is different. Some
Yeah.
classes are going to push on that line a little more of wanting to be buddies or, things like that. So I think that's great admonition, is just putting everything, having a place for everything and sticking with that. That's great. Great insights. Okay. Along the lines of loving education, since that's our theme for today, there are educators walking away from education every day. It's hard. It's hard to be an educator. Randy, what are your thoughts and experiences with that? What do you do when you feel like you have lost your love for teaching, or maybe the students you have are really hard to love, or you just feel like you're burning out with education? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, those are loaded questions. One thing that another principal of mine used to say to me is, you can quit every Friday, but you have to be back on Monday.
Well said.
And sometimes that means when you walk away, you have to walk away. You have to take that time to recover. There's, I hate using the phrase me time because of what some people mean with that.
Sure.
But you do have to take time to stop and refresh yourself. That's one reason why we have to stay in Scripture. We have to keep ourselves motivated to live for God. And we do that sometimes because we get to the place where we're like, okay, God, what are you doing here? I don't get this. I don't understand what's going on. And we've all had those times, or we will have those times when we think, okay, I've blown it. I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to fix this. And sometimes it's just because you need to take that time with God and say, okay, God, I need you to help me fix this. Because it's not easy teaching. There are some times, and I've never been in a public school. God has blessed me to be able to stay in a Christian school. I am not wealthy. I don't ever plan on being wealthy. It would be nice. So if someone wants to donate money, that would be great. But
that's a great announcement there. A little side announcement.
Little side kick there. But I've told people for years, if I had the money where I didn't have to get paid to teach, I would still love to teach. But I have to also admit, there are days I don't feel like that.
Sure.
There are days I get up and I'm thinking, I could just lay in bed for another couple of hours and school will be out, and then I can get up and do what I want to. And then I go, no, I can't.
Right. No.
But
you go back because you love it.
Right. But when you work to love something and then you love what you do, although those downtimes come when you have to stop and get away, you get right back to the, okay, I need to get up and do what I need to do. And loving your job is a big part of it with teaching. I know there's teachers walking away from it, and that kind of breaks my heart, because I think it's because they've lost the passion.
I agree.
When you lose the passion for teaching, when you lose that love for teaching, it's easy to give up.
Right.
So you've just got to, and sometimes it's nothing more, especially for Christian educators, we just need to get back to the Word of God, because sometimes
Very
it's
true.
a revival that we need in our own heart to make us where we should be. Told students for years, my best days are the days that I spend time with God first.
Absolutely.
And that also means my worst days are the days that I think I can make it without him. And he reminds me often when those days happen, no, you can't make it without me, Randy. Come on, you need me too. And God doesn't need us, we need him. And when he's the center of our lives, he helps whatever we do to be something that we can be passionate about, we can love to do.
Yeah. And if God has called us to do something, he's going to give us what we need to do it. And sometimes, like you said, that discouragement or that walking away is on us. We need to step back and look at God's word and God's calling to us and walk in that. He has called us to do this. He's going to give us what we need. He didn't push us out there to be an educator and then say, hope it goes well. He's there to give us exactly what we need. But, I'm confident that we have listeners today who are in that boat. They are discouraged. They're thinking, what do I do next year? Should I keep with this? Education is definitely not for the faint of heart. We know that. We say that often here on the show. It's trying, it's exhausting, but it is so rewarding. And listeners, I hope today maybe we sparked again that love for education in you and encouraged you in some way. Maybe there's someone out there who needs a little extra encouragement in their calling. And Randy, I appreciate what you said about that and sometimes just taking a little time to step away. And I know the feeling, you have papers to grade. There's always something to do as a teacher. You can always be improving something, making something, creating something, grading something. But like you said, the me time, and I understand what you're saying about how that term has kind of become very selfish with our culture, but just taking some time to step away and refresh ourselves and be in God's word. He's the one who called us to do it. Randy, thank you so much for taking time to share with us today. You are definitely an inspiration as a faithful educator for so many years, and it's been a blessing to have you share your love for education with us here on the show today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Listeners, thank you so much for being with us today as well. I hope you were challenged and encouraged as I was. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and go follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day, but it's not just any day, because every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Now go do what God has called you to do.